As an avid player of the game outside, it really bothers me when there's a plot hole within the game's lore. I mean, don't get me wrong, the game has great mechanics, extensive lore, and amazing graphics. But it has a lot of plot holes and things that just don't add up. Like for example, back when the Ancient Egypt Guild was still around, they built these giant stone pyramids right in the middle of the desert. We get no explanation for how these things were built. The current explanation is that we got these Egyptian farmers, right? You know, farming bread, worshipping cats, making clay pots, and then they're like, you know, we should have some tombs for our dead kings. Ah, so small structures that we could protect them in. I see. Well, that's not quite what I was thinking. So then they dragged a bunch of 5-ton limestone blocks out into the desert and then stacked them on top of one another. About 500 feet into the air. It just seems pretty ridiculous to me. If I had to guess, they probably hacked the game and just, you know, added them in. Another plot hole was when the Mongol Guild tried to take control of the eastern servers. So let's paint a picture here. We got a bunch of these guys with high levels and horseback riding and archery, just traveling around, killing people, burning stuff. They're just having a good time. Then this sort of happens. Guys, I think we got a problem. You know, we're just gonna do some village raids, but now we got a ton of territory. Wait, we took over all.
We were just gonna ride around on horses
the
for
same
a bit,
reason
not
Attila
take over
got
half
banned.
the world.
They even left the Asian server and started invading the Europe server. And then they somehow managed to bypass the cannot be invaded in winter effect that the Russia region has. But maybe it's not a plot hole. Maybe the Mongol build was just a super effective human build. But then right after their guild leader quit, they sort of just fell apart. So you're telling me that these guys were able to conquer a large majority of the known map and just lose it all in about 50 years? Doesn't make much sense to me. And then we had the whole New World questline, which was one of the most ridiculous things in the game. So we got this player that goes by the username Columbus, and he's just a normal player, grinding currency by trading spices, which was part of the meta at the time. So he tries to exploit the game by sailing around the map, thinking that it would be a better route to the Asia server. And then he just so happens to stumble upon an event quest that results in the Americas expansion. But the thing about the Americas expansion is that it was massive and introduced a ton of new items. But you're trying to get me to believe that there was this entire landmass that takes up half the world map and no one ever figured out was over here? The odd thing about it was that there were already players who had access to it. As far as we know, they gained access through a backdoor hack in the game, which allowed them to play in the expansion early. And the devs just let it happen. Speaking of expansions, what are the devs planning to do with the space expansion? It's been a massive part of the lore since the beginning, but it could never really be visited. That was up until recently, when the addition of the spaceship started the Final Frontier questline. Though ever since the moon landing part of the quest was completed, essentially nothing else has happened. Which is pretty strange. It's a very rewarding questline that opens up a ton of opportunity. Perhaps the expansion was too buggy, as it does have a lot of content and it needed to be put on hold to be patched. Though the player Elon Musk has been trying to kickstart developments in the questline, which may go somewhere, although new evidence has shown that Elon may have dropped the questline and could now be working to modify the game's source code and add the genetically engineered Catgirl.